Happy New Year, everyone.
Many happy returns.
2019 has come. So today we're talking about the year ahead and what, in terms of our perspectives, will be the various trends, especially within development and within the citizens' space. And so we're going to share our own perspectives. So this year, one thing I've noticed is that there's going to be a lot of elections in Africa. In February, we have 2 elections, major ones, in Senegal and in Nigeria. And then I know we're going to have an election in Algeria, we're going to have an election in Botswana, we're going to have an election in Namibia, in Malawi, in Mauritania. We're going to have several elections. I believe also in Ghana, we're going to have local government elections. So there's going to be a lot of elections. So
Election season.
Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of citizens' engagement in electoral processes. And the question now is, how are we then going to take this engagement beyond the elections to ensure that citizens are even more engaged in the happenings in their country? Another thing I've seen is that apparently, according to Bloomberg, Generation Z, if you're American, Z, is actually currently taking over in terms of numbers, the millennials. So those of us who were born from the year 2001 will be the largest population on this continent. And that for me is a major, it's going to have a major impact on how we work and the major dynamic within the employment space. Because these are people who were born in the technologically savvy times, the virtual people, the tech savvy, and they work very, very differently from the older generation. So how are we then going to be able to develop leadership programs, and especially around soft skills, to prepare this generation that are now going to be at the helm of affairs and are going to be driving our economy? So I think that's another major issue. Another major issue I'm looking at is data management. Remember what happened with Facebook and the issues of privacy, and then what the various countries have done in enacting certain laws and regulations to really manage this whole privacy issue, data privacy issues. I know they've done something in Europe that has affected how data is managed, and I believe data management and issues of data security are also going to come to the fore, especially within Africa. And these are issues I think we should be looking out for. So these are, just to begin with, these are some of the issues I believe will be trending this year. I don't know if anybody else have other perspectives.
Well, I think another thing that will really be trending is also Africa's partnership with China in the Asias, like we've seen already. And not only that, even Europe, we can see that the attention, the focus now is being drawn to Africa. Like Africa is the last scorecard for all these things. So the attention. So I think we will see a lot of partnerships. But how actually that the leaders, particularly the presidents, will actually allow the citizens to benefit from it actually is a question. How they will let these partnerships, not just going to sit there to just take anything that's given, but actually assess the partnerships that are being given is something that I feel we should also delve into. Yeah, that's a very valid point. I don't know what you think, Chamrit.
Yes.
What are your major trends you're seeing within the continent?
I'm really excited for this 2019 year because I feel this will be the year where we'll see major new type of actors blooming within this development work. We are living in a period where everybody has the tools to make it himself or herself heard. We all have internet, we all have social media, everybody can be an activist. So I believe that in 2019, it won't be the traditional NGOs who will be making a real change. It will be citizens, it will be activists, it will be social entrepreneurs who will be making themselves more relevant and more impactful. So I'm excited. I'm waiting to see what will be happening, and I know that more people are angry or willing to go out and implement this change and we're seeing more of that in 2019.
So you basically think 2019 will be the year of the citizen?
Yes, I believe
Definitely.
so. I believe so.
That's very interesting. What about you, Joe?
Yes. I have the same perception like Shamri this year, but what I'm also looking at is we are starting. People are starting having this consciousness when it comes to how we relate with religion and co. So I think 2019 will also be a year where we'll be looking at those things, because we are African are believers. We believe a lot when it comes to religion.
Very religious.
People are religious. When you see countries that are 90% Muslim, countries that are 90% Christians, but we are not seeing the impact of the religion on the citizen. And the citizens are starting now thinking other way and having another regard when it comes to religion. So I think it will be something that we'll also be looking at, and people will be having a kind of criticism against a religion, or trying to find new way to make sure that religion is something that is contributing to the growth of the people.
So I think people are going to become more reflective about the way they themselves exercise their faith, and start to question why, how they can even use their faith to become a little bit more civic conscious and also more responsible. Yeah, I mean, people have said that we are highly religious, but at the same time easily corruptible. And so that's one of the, I think, challenges that we're going to have. And talking about corruption it's also going to be still a major issue. I think one of the things that's going to be discussed now is, how do we really tackle this? Because I think we've tried tackling it from different points of view, and it doesn't seem to be going away. And I think it's going to be a year where there's going to be very in-depth reflections and discussions on how we can find innovative ways of tackling it. One of the ways people have been discussing, I think is going to become very topical, is how to use technology to basically manage that human factor. You know, because when you use technology, you reduce the ability of the human being to get corrupted. And I think many of our institutions and processes in our countries will be looking at using technology to cut down corruption. And I think that's something that it's going to be. So technology and its use, especially looking at the mobile phone penetration in Africa, I think is going to be a major factor. But also linked to that is the data issues. There's a sad and worrying trend of our governments trying to manipulate the data space, either, especially during elections, internet is cut off, or they are taxing data.
Now people are being punished for tweets and things,
exactly. People are there have been proposals of managing social media or regulating social media, and I think that's going to be another topic that's going to come to the fore. I really don't have a position on that now, but I think trying to regulate social media now may not be the right thing to do. I don't, because I feel that it's an important area where citizens' voices can be heard. I think what should be done is, in a way, for us to create mechanisms to name and shame those who abuse social media, but also to applaud those who are using social media to make social change, so that people are more encouraged to use social media positively. I think these are some of the things.
It's all about what we have in mind when we're talking about regulating social media. It's all about what we have in mind. If government has in mind to regulate social media in the sense that to prevent citizens from maybe criticizing government work, it's become something that's bad. But if government want to regulate social media to actually help people to protect their privacy, their images online, it's something else. But you shouldn't be trying to regulate something when you are targeting people to protect yourself or protect your own interest. It doesn't work.
It's all about the intent.
Behind
the act. How do we measure those intents? This intent?
No. I
feel like we are talking about trends.
I think that one thing that's very trendy now is cyberbullying, and I think that's what Joel is trying to say.
But is cyberbullying something that, as Africa, is it a priority? I'm a bit ignorant about it. Is it something that is an African problem? Because when I hear about cyberbullying a lot, I always hear about it, especially in America and in Europe. But I hardly hear about cyberbullying. I hear trolling. But this language, I don't really understand.
And bullying, they're actually sort of related. I think we haven't really put in perspective what cyberbullying means to us.
Let's speak on this is it a priority for Africa?
Yes.
Does it mean to us?
Is this something that we're going to focus on this year?
I don't think so.
I believe that
I think cybersecurity.
Yeah, but not bullying.
I believe 2019 will be a year where Africans will be asking themselves more, is this a priority for us? Because on this global
it's a year where we'll be more focused on priority.
Exactly. Because there's all this a feeling that an issue, a global issue, should also be automatically an African issue, or maybe in the same way. And as you mentioned, we'll have a lot of elections. Me, I will ask the question: is democracy good for Africa? Is the simple fact that we change,
or is the way democracy being practiced the way it should be practiced?
Even how we even observe elections, do we really come out with the facts about what really goes on the ground in election observation?
Exactly.
And there's another thing. You know, in Africa, I have noticed something. We focus more on elections.
Yes.
Meanwhile, we have other issues going on. We have youth that are not employed. Okay.
Unemployment
is there. We don't even have electricity and the technology issue there. But when it comes to election, everybody is.
It's like everything comes to a halt.
A country who was able to change its president each 5 years are supposed to return will be seen as more democratic, even if the people are poor. But a country who have one president who has been there for like 10 years, but this president is working, will be seen as non-democratic, and the overall community will say this country is not following the democratic rules, but people are happy. This country is following the democratic rules. They keep switching government, but they are not happy.
But
what do we want?
Maybe these leaders, sometimes when they're in power for a while, they tend to sort of abuse the power.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the problem.
So the point should be,
at what point do we let you be on there for a while, but at what point do we limit the extent to which you can do certain things?
No, let me just link something that you brought up, which I think is a major issue. It's unbelievable that it's escaped us from the beginning. Employment. Youth employment. And it's linked to what you're saying, democracy and economic transformation. Somebody asked me once, so does it take a democratic environment to bring economic transformation? And then I said, no, not necessarily. You don't need a democratic environment to bring economic transformation. However, you need a democratic environment to sustain the economic transformation.
But it comes back to the soft skills we were talking about.
So that is where we should be thinking about. That's where sometimes the Rwanda story becomes worrying, because yes, there's economic transformation, but President Kagame has to ensure that he leaves a legacy of a democratic environment to sustain his own legacy. So the focus now is, how do we as youth be able to engage with our governments and institutions to create jobs and to identify job opportunities, so that many of the young people are gainfully employed and applying themselves, and refraining from joining all sorts of groups and causing chaos. And when you are employed, then you also have a mindset, or you have the peace of mind to engage democratically, to become an engaged citizen. You cannot be an engaged citizen on an empty stomach.
Yes.
In my view.
So
you see the linkages, right? So to sustain this democracy, we need to ensure that our youth are employed.
But Charles, it will come down to us also reviewing the criteria in which we use to employ our youth, or the criteria we use to employ people generally. You spoke about soft skills. If you go to certain places where technology is advanced, in some companies like Amazon, Facebook, etc., they don't really focus much about, say, age and how much the criteria we would basically look on here, the number of years you've worked, etc. You know, you would see a 20-year-old looking for a job, and then the year requirement is 10 years, and you wonder, did you expect me to start working at age 10? So we also need to carve requirements in a way that appreciates soft skills and people's ability to use their ingenuity to solve things, not necessarily based on the number of years experience. Also, we need to frame our work setting, especially in Africa, in a way that, because of how a certain generation has worked in a particular way for a long time, a younger generation comes up and they are trying to be different in the way they approach things, and it's maybe talked about us, and maybe this is not the way we do it, or it's not the way it should be done, not necessarily because it's not good enough, but because it does not suit that status quo. So we really also need to review it in such a way that it allows the youth, because as you said, the youth are the way now. If we look at the population, you look at the percentages, the youth are the most now, but you'll see some people older who've been in certain positions for a very long time, and when it comes to their end of their tenure, they are given consultancies and they stay there for a long time because we've carved it in a certain way that we look for particular things, neglecting the upcoming trends, upcoming things like technology we need to pay attention to.
But I feel like that's how you end up being like Yahoo. Yahoo didn't want to pick on technology, so those people, let them be. They will just collapse if they don't pick on the new trend.
But it's a trend in Africa. No, seriously, it's something that Africans really do.
I think we are moving. Africans are moving maybe slowly, but I think there's a recognition that if you are looking for skills now, the number one thing you should look at is for soft skills, people management, your ability to communicate. Your negotiation, team building, your ability to mentor and coach, your ability to be strategic in terms of your thinking. Those are the basic skills now for you to lead any organization into the future. Because as for technical skills, you can learn it on the job.
Exactly.
Knowledge, you can actually read about it and study it.
Exactly.
And so these are the things that people are really, and these, for me, leadership development should be more focused around these things.
And I think it's also high time we start believing in our youth, you know, because like Mami was right saying, people this time around is very, I don't know if it is a competition between the youth and the older generation, but of course they are old. but I don't know if it is a competition. But it's not a competition.
Like they feel threatened.
It's not a competition. You know, there should be turnover when you come and you do your time. You contribute. Let somebody
exit gracefully.
Yes, exactly. Okay, leave a legacy and let somebody else continue and build upon it. And people come with fresh mind, new idea, innovative idea to contribute. But when you see them as your competitors, I don't understand.
No, I think we have a lot of work to do, both the older and the young people, to try and work together and work more collaboratively and merge, because there's a lot to learn from each other.
Exactly.
It's when one group feels they can't learn from the other, then there's a problem.
Or when one group feels they are better than the other.
Yeah, I mean that's also then there's also a problem there. So for me, looking at the trends for 2019, I think there's a lot that's going to happen in Africa. I think, in my view, I'm in the right continent. Everything that is going to change the world is going to be happening in Africa.
Yes.
Big time. And I think, like I've been saying, positive energy, positive vibes. This is the year that we should talk about positive narratives, tell good stories, stories that share stories about people making a difference to counter all the negativity. In my view, stop complaining too much and do more.
And actually working. But another thing I feel we forgot about to talk about that could be a trend is those groups that have felt marginalized now rising up. And even when you go to America and just recently their Congress elections, you saw a lot of Muslim women who are part now who actually wear their hijab, which was actually forbidden. So a lot of marginalized communities, whether are rising up and actually saying that and being forceful in the sense that you have marginalized us for too long, and
now we're standing up for
ourselves. That's why now you see trends like Pepe, them gaining grounding, because maybe they felt like their voices had been hushed down for too long, and now we are not going to take it anymore. So 2019 is also a time where we see a lot of marginalized people, the youth, for example, who felt like the older generation have shut us away for too long, rising up to do incredible things that we didn't think about. So marginalization is also going to be a thing.
To kind of like summarize, I don't want us to be like a typical man who sets a lot of resolution in the beginning of the year and nothing will happen. 2019 will be hot. There will be a lot of new things, but it will be the beginning of a process. And it will leverage of what has been happening in the past. But everything won't be changing in 2019. Of course, things will start changing. So let's not expect that maybe Zimbabwe will be the first economic country in 2019. But it will start.
But no,
and let also start thinking of this regional integration. That's what will help us move far. Exactly, because when we are actually going alone, we don't go far, or we may go far, but we may not reach So it's better for us to
come together,
promote the regional integration, come together, be more strong, and be able to face the Western world.
And we need to also assess certain regional groups. And I think that one of the things we will talk about eventually, which we've been discussing, is how these regional groups, such as ECOWAS, what it really means for the citizens and other borders. It's something we've been saying we will talk about for some time. But actually, not just regional integrations, not just regionally integrating, but what it means. I'm Ghanaian. You are from Benin, and we have been in ECOWAS. But you get to the borders, and the story is not the same.
Don't even start, mommy.
Let's stick with the trend.
I know. So it's something we have to also.
No, but it's a very important issue about how we make the regional integration project citizen-driven. On paper, it looks like that's the intention, but it hasn't actualized. But I think there's a lot more work to do. But I'm looking forward to a great 2019.
I am too. I'm excited.
Yes, and 2019, I'll be inviting more of you guys to join us to discuss all of this, because we won't be able to discuss this without you, and it will be very key if you join us.
We've engaged. We don't have all the wisdom.
Positive vibes, positive energy.
Please share, tell your friends about the citizens. Join us in the conversations. Don't just watch us. We want to hear from you. We want to feel you. We want to engage with you. Networking actually is a way to go now.
Definitely.
Building relationships, networks, to change the Africa that not only just talking like Charles mentioned, but actually seeing results. We want Africa to see results.
That's right.
And
you are the student.
We are.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.